So we're here with Ryan and Lauren, and we're going to continue our conversation about Emma and her growth through grief. And our next segment, I guess we're going to call it, is impact and growth. So can you kind of give me a before and after, how she was? I mean, we know how she was, but could you give us some examples of what was before and then after the counseling, how that changed,
Yeah.
how maybe they correlate?
Yeah, for sure. So I think we touched on this, but we homeschooled together. We met at private school
Mm-hmm.
and did that for
2
2 years.
years.
Yeah, 2 years. And then we homeschooled for a year.
Yeah.
And so we had another family from the school that also homeschooled
Mhm.
together. So it was our, our three
Yep.
families and the three girls.
Yep.
And
They were called homegrown learners.
we were homegrown learners.
So creative.
Thank you.
Yes.
And so, one of the things I noticed shortly after Bella went on to heaven was Emma holding on very tightly to her other homeschool friend.
Yeah.
And we had another family. Well, we've already mentioned the Padillas that had joined us and homeschooled for a little while, but not for very long.
Right. Like
And so,
months.
there hadn't been much time for the four of them, I think, to build the kind of friendship that the three of them had
Yeah.
previously. And that's just the timing of it all.
Yeah.
Uh, but I don't know if I should mention her name because I don't know if that's okay. We would just call our other friend.
Yeah. Our other friend.
Yeah.
Our other friend that was with us all from the beginning.
Mhm.
Emma clung to her very tightly.
Yeah.
And I think to no fault of her own, I think she just unintentionally excluded, our other friend that was new to the
Mhm.
group. And, so there was tension there. There was
Yeah.
tension and that was hard to navigate. And, thankfully all of us moms have a good, we're adults, so we had a good friendship. And so at some point we had to talk about that and,
Right.
and talk about what was best for all of our kids to move forward. So one of the things when we talk about, before and after, uh, during like that first, I don't know if it was a full year, but a solid 6 months, maybe a little more. That was rough. I think the three of us clung together, the moms, really tightly going into homeschool that fall.
Mhm.
And I saw Emma clinging to, our other close friend. And I don't know. It I also saw her struggle with not just how to keep doing homeschool and how to be a good friend when she was feeling so heavy and sad. But, she also danced with Bella at a different studio. Whenever they were still in private school
Mhm.
together, they danced together. And um, something Emma struggled with was going back to that. She struggled being at home and she struggled with how do I go dance without my friend?
Right.
And
And in some ways, she honestly struggled with connecting to her friends because
yeah,
I think she had matured a little bit faster than her other friends because of having to go through the cancer journey.
yeah,
And looking back, that was kind of a gift for her to experience before this. Kind of getting her to a different level of understanding
yeah,
in a different way, right? So I think that was another struggle of her knowing how to connect to her friends because she was on a different maturity level than a lot of her friends.
Mhm.
yeah. A lot of that innocence was taken beforehand.
Mhm.
And yeah, so maybe, being around other kids that still have that innocence, it was hard for her to be around them and to be as playful and energetic.
Well, just in general, if you're feeling heavy,
Yeah.
majority of these other kids aren't feeling as heavy unless they were going,
Yeah.
through it also.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So you're bringing in all this weight to this friendship that this other person doesn't understand
Yeah.
why you're the way you are, why you think the way you do.
Mhm.
I mean, if it's possible for adults to experience this, we can put it into words. To your point earlier about not being able to put it into words,
Mhm.
kids, it's just a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
They have a
And
hard
so,
time too.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the dance girls experienced that. The when they went into the next season, there was some new girls that kind of came in,
Yeah.
and there was a rough season.
Mhm.
The connection was hard to connect
It's
because they felt like you can't replace Bella.
Mhm.
yeah.
And if they even had a feeling that they were trying to replace Bella, they were very quick to be like, no.
And kind of territorial
Very
about it.
There's
territorial,
defensive, there's
Very
territorial, there's
defensive.
possessive,
Yes. And so,
protective.
Emma, and I think, Bella's other dance friends that she had been on that team with, there's a solid group of them and they all had each other. And in our homeschool community, there were 4 of us,
Right.
and now all of a sudden we're down to 3. And that third person is pretty new to the group. And so that's a lot of that tension was this new family, these new kids trying, I think, to um express as much sadness as Emma,
Mhm.
and Emma knowing there's no way you can feel as sad as I do because I knew her for years, you've known her for 6 months.
Right.
So that kind of knowledge and tension, Emma struggled with. She struggled with how to be a good friend to them because she was very territorial.
Mhm.
And the friend that we had homeschooled with that knew Bella as long as her, I think that's why she clung to her so tightly
Right.
because
There was a commonality.
there was a commonality.
The
We-
dance girls did the same.
yeah, and so it was just a struggle. It was a
Yeah.
struggle, but we navigated it, I think, as well as we could have, and kind of, we all go to the same church, and so we kind of parted ways as a homeschool group. But when we see each other at church or when the girls see each other, they're cordial and they're friendly, and
Right.
there was just an understanding of, you know what, our families are probably not meant to do life together every day,
Right.
but we are brothers and sisters in Christ and we have that common ground, and we can be adults and realize that this is what's best for our kids,
Right.
but still preserve the friendship that we had
Yeah.
as adults,
Right.
and parents.
Do you think that counseling helped her process through that? Or do you think she processed that before going to counseling? Or would you definitely say that counseling helped her process through that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have been through so much of my own counseling and talking through having grace and understanding for my own friends
Yeah.
when I went through all my stuff. And so I took a lot of that knowledge
Right.
into our conversations. So I think, her therapist has been very validating of to me as a mom and to just tell me how impressed she is with the kind of conversations that Emma and I have had prior to her going into therapy. So I think it is important for parents to know you have to be willing to talk about this stuff with your kids. Don't just
Mhm.
send them to therapy
Right.
and expect the therapist to do
All the work.
all of the parenting work, right?
Mhm.
Like the therapist can give good tools and help reinforce, but it's kind of like just going to church on Sunday morning. Like, don't expect to send your kids to Sunday school for 1 hour, 1 day a week, and that be enough to change their life. You have
Yeah.
to be the example at home and live it out and reinforce what they're learning in church. It's the same with therapy.
Yeah.
And so I think we just, both of us having been in therapy and learning so much on our own and knowing how important it is to talk about it, we started talking about it
Mhm.
and introducing a lot of that stuff to her beforehand. And actually, I think in Emma's case specifically, I think her therapist just reinforces a lot of what we already do. And I think that it helps her go, oh, okay, mom and dad actually know what they're talking about.
Right.
Did the therapist get in contact with you guys, regularly to discuss, hey, this is what I'm noticing, this is what I'm seeing, and give you direction as to how to deal with some stuff at home or engage with her?
I think on any other kind of normal basis, that is how it would work. But in our case, she would call and, hey, I just want to touch base. What's going on in your lives? Is there anything specific that you want me to be focusing on with
Okay.
Emma?
Okay.
Yeah, because at first it was like we really need you to focus on getting her ready for us to be out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like our main focus. Like help
Yes.
her be okay
To
with us
navigate it.
not being there for a
Mhm.
little
Yeah.
while.
Yeah, because she did, she recognizes that we have a lot of conversations with Emma that most parents are not being as proactive in having.
Mhm.
So I think if we weren't having those, then she definitely would be coming to us. But we're just very intentional with I have a friend who is a therapist who told me years ago, we were talking about something random. I think Emma had brought up a question that I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm ready to answer that question,
Right.
And she was just looked at me one day and said, you know what? My best advice to you is that when a child comes to you with a question, they're ready for the answer.
Mhm.
Now, you are, we're the gatekeepers. I love that term. So give an age appropriate answer,
Mhm.
but give them an answer. Don't
Yeah.
just be like, no, don't shut them down and say, no, we're not talking about it.
They'll go look elsewhere for the answer.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if your kid
Well,
comes to you
yeah.
with a question, give them an answer. And it's okay. I think Kara and
She took a pause. She's like,
Lace-
that's a really good question. But let me
Right.
think about it and let me get back to you.
If you don't have an immediate
Yeah.
answer, you can pause, but reassure them. Let's come and talk about it. At this time
In an
or-
hour or tonight before bed.
Right.
Yeah.
Give yourself time to come up with how you want to give them an answer, but give them answers. And I
Well,
think
and two, like she'll ask questions when her brother's around too, and it's definitely not a good time to be responding when he's around.
Right.
that's true because he is the younger brother. So sometimes we're like, that's a great question.
Let's talk about this
that
after he goes to bed.
after your brother goes to bed. Yeah.
Well, it was yesterday. I was around the girls yesterday, and I don't know how we got on this subject of Bella's 2-year anniversary coming up.
Mhm.
And I had told them that I had talked to you. We were going to do something possibly at your home for Bella's 2-year.
Yeah.
Going home. And so I was telling the girls about it, and they were all very excited about just getting together. They're like us. They're total girls. They
Yeah.
like getting together
Yeah.
about anything.
Yeah.
So I told them about it, and I said, so Bella's going home day was June 1st. And they were all very quick to say, no, it's not. What? And then one of them said, I thought it was June 9th. And like they all knew, like it was not something like they had forgotten. It was still very fresh in their mind. And they were like, I thought it was June 9th. And one of the other ones said, yeah, me too. I thought it was June 9th.
Mhm.
And I was like, this is awkward. And I'm sitting there thinking there's 4 of them there, and I'm like, well, technically, yes, June 9th. And I said, so, but June 1st is the day that Bella was in the accident, and we believe that Natalia sees me struggling, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, because first of all, you guys aren't there, and I don't want to say the wrong thing. And I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And so Natalia goes, well, that's when her soul went to heaven. That was a good, and so they all looked at her and like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, so who Bella really was, like her soul went to heaven,
Mhm.
but Bella's body was still here.
Yeah.
So the 9th is when her body left too.
Yeah.
And she spoke it so eloquently, like, and I was just stumbling around, like, I didn't know what to say. And so Natalia kind of just said it, and the girls were like, oh. And then one of them looked at me and goes, well, what do you mean her body was here? And I'm like, oh my gosh, let's just stop asking questions. I'm like, Talia, I'll let you take over, Natalia.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she was just like, and so I just told them, well, there's machines that help you and all the things. And so I but
I would have made it real simple and said, this is the last day that we got to talk to her. Real
yeah.
simple. Like this
Yeah.
is
See,
our last
I
day.
couldn't
And I'm
think. Like I was trapped by these 11-year-olds.
You're surrounded by all these eyes.
I was like, oh, what do I say? And I was thinking of like calling. You were gone already, and I was like, oh my gosh, Lacey, help me.
Yeah.
But it was just a real, moment where these girls are getting older.
Yeah.
They're starting to ask questions, and sometimes they're questions that are big girl questions now.
Yeah.
In fact, we were just talking to a psychologist on a podcast recently, and she said that grief evolves.
Mm-hmm.
So the way the kids grieved at 8 or 9 years old
Mm-hmm.
will change when they're 12 and 13 years old. In
even about
fact,
the same thing.
it'll come back
or
around.
internalize it differently.
Yeah.
It'll come back around because they're older now. Now they're understanding more of what happened.
Reflection.
Reflection, their reality has set in, and now they have time to process. Where when they're 9, they're not the same space as they're when they're 13.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that Emma's still getting the counseling, because now looking at 2 years later, stuff can arise
Yeah.
again. Even, when there's no help, stuff can arise into their teen years. They can get angry, start questioning their faith.
Yeah.
And that's a really good question. I want to ask
Well,
you that.
before we
with
get
the
into
faith.
that, let's finish
Yeah.
where we were
Yeah.
because we talked about the before.
Yeah.
And we've seen a little bit about the before.
Mhm.
And you can't really get into the after
Mm.
because you're still in,
Yeah.
but you can get to the point of after the initial
Yeah.
year. So where is she now in regards to all this?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to do this, sum it up. Cliff Notes version. We went from not feeling comfortable at home, not being willing to dance in any dance studio because they had been at 2 different dance studios together. Didn't want to go back to that. Didn't know how to be moving forward in our homeschool group.
Didn't want to be away from
Didn't want to
us.
be away from us. A lot of things. And to now, we've been in, I say we, she's been in therapy for almost a year, a year in August. And I hear things. I know I spoke to this already, but I hear things like I want to be home. That's where I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think doing things like redoing her room. She's back at, a dance studio. We had a year before therapy. I think she had dance therapy. We ended up in someone's home who had a little, fine art studio that she does. And she primarily focuses on the littles, but she had a homeschool class for older kids. And I think that helped Emma process at that point. She was doing
Because it wasn't just dance, it was art and stuff too.
yeah,
So it
so
really
I
helped
think,
her.
it wasn't therapy, but it was for her.
Mhm.
She was moving her
It
body.
is
She
therapy.
was
Yeah.
painting. She was, in a place that was new. There were no memories of Bella in this new space. And so I think it was kind of an outlet of turning off her mind because everywhere else she went, and she still sees Bella everywhere she goes. She carries her with her everywhere. But I think for that hour and a half, that one day a week, it was just getting comfortable in her own skin again.
Yeah.
And that in tandem with therapy evolved into being in a dance studio now
Where Bella danced.
where Bella danced. And
now she's sad. She was just and so now we were talking about the new studio coming.
yeah.
And she was like, And I was like, why? Why are you excited? She's like, and I think she finally felt comfortable where Bella danced with the
Yeah.
girls and now her friends, and now she's making new memories there and all the
Yeah.
things. And now, it's changing again.
Another new change, yes. But she carries Bella with her every day. I do not recall a day that's gone by that we don't talk about Bella at least in one sentence of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And Panda Bear sales have gone up since
I'm
June 1st.
sure they have,
2024.
yeah. And the Jeremiah 29:11 little things, like I call them God winks. We saw them all through the cancer journey. We see them all through, our grief journey and, her grief journey. But our church, had Jeremiah 29:11 in the kids building that we turned
Takes up
corner
an
one
entire
day and
wall,
takes up
yeah.
an entire giant wall. And it just was in our face. But it just felt like the Lord's
And that was in the works way before that
Yeah.
happened. And so
yeah, just little
It's
things
incredible.
that
It's always everywhere.
the way the Lord, he's done that, I think, for each of us. But, I obviously my focus is where do I see it for her and all of that showing up and how the Lord has used people and our church to just show up for her. And,
Yeah.
during that time, Bella was in the hospital all the way to now and just getting to know Bella's dance friends. I mean, small world. I don't think Lacey mentioned this, but Bella had, homeschool friends and she had dance friends because at that point,
And
Emma
church
was
friends.
not dancing at the studio yet.
Right. Mm-mm.
And that week she's in the hospital, Emma and Gracie end up at church wearing the same shirt that has to do with Bella.
Right.
And they just look at each other, just shocked, like, wait, how do you know my friend?
Yeah.
And they realized, oh, you're the Emma she always talks about. Oh, you're the Gracie she always talks about. And I just thought, thank you, God. Like she has that connection, with a dance friend. And so I'm thankful for that because it made it easier for Emma to bridge that gap, even though she wasn't on that dance team, that those were Bella's friends. Those weren't her friends. And I think having that bridge with Gracie from
Mhm.
church,
Mhm.
and then, we're all cut from the same cloth. And
Yeah.
so the moms just welcomed me in, the girls just welcomed her in. And I was pretty shocked. Like we talk about before and after, before therapy and going through all that initial early grief, I think it was awkward for Emma and I both at first to think about entering into a part of Bella's world that we hadn't been a part of. And it was so effortless and so easy. And I look at now we're at the dance studio. She's not on the dance team, but she has come to learn to love to move her body. She loves
Mhm.
the way it makes her feel. And she loves the connection she has, not just feeling close to Bella, but I think just feeling close to the Lord and
Mhm.
it growing her faith. And I think just like speaking into like mental health, physical health, emotional health. I think dance gave her that. And so all of that in tandem with therapy, going to therapy and her therapist being able to speak life into those areas of her life and encourage her to keep doing those things. But all of that to say, um, she has a friend in one of her dance classes right now that had a parent that had the same cancer I had.
Mhm.
And her mom and I have become really good friends. The girls have become good friends. And in conversation, I started to talk to Emma about it. And she just said, "Oh, yeah, I know. She's just like me." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean by that?" We just understand each other. And so I've just realized in talking with other people, kids, when they meet other kids that have gone through heavy, innocent stealing kind of things,
Mhm.
they understand each other in a way that other kids just can't understand them.
Yeah.
And so then I realized, I think that's why it was so effortless for the dance team and Emma and the moms and I to
Mhm.
we just clicked. And I think
Right.
we just all had this understanding and this commonality of knowing how to empathize with each other on a really personal and deep level. And I think, I if I could go back and redo something, Lacey invited Emma and I to join them all the time to do things. Um, and I always said no in the beginning because I thought it would be too hard and weird
Mhm.
for Emma and I both. And then when I finally agreed to it, I thought, oh, this is where we needed to be the whole time.
Mhm.
So just to speak into, it is easy to want to crawl in your hole and hide
Mhm.
and to not do life in community with people, but your kids need to be around other kids and people that know what it feels like to feel what they're feeling, because
Yeah.
even though it feels impossible to put words, just being in the same room with somebody that can empathize even a little bit with how you're feeling
Mhm.
is can be life-giving.
I think that's what it was for all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We use the term trauma bonded, although I've heard that that is not the correct term. From
That's
someone.
true. I've heard that too.
It's not
People
the correct term.
people use that the
So
wrong way.
Oh,
don't comment. I don't know. I'm just saying. But trauma bonded, we refer it to as we've all been through a traumatic experience together, right?
I would just say we've all gone through the manure together.
Yes, we've gone through the manure together, and I think that that's what brings common ground, whether they were there from the beginning or not. It doesn't matter whether Emma was on the team or wasn't on the team. Our commonality is we went through all something really hard,
Yeah.
yeah.
and we came through it,
Yeah.
and I think that's where Emma was able to connect with the dance girls right away,
Yeah.
because the dance girls weren't always accepting of outsiders because it was like that territorial thing, right?
Yeah.
But Emma, they were, because one, Emma knew her longer. And
That's true.
so they were like, "Oh, wait, this is
Oh, this
Emma's
is like
people.
a real friend.
Yeah, this is
She
Bella's people. So
Yeah.
we need to like welcome." And right away the chemistry
Yeah.
connected right away. And I think they were able to lean on each other and be kind to each other. You don't have to be on the same team to be on the same team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they were on a different team together,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they had a lot of commonality that
Mhm.
helped them. Okay,
I would
so
say too, just
Yeah.
I want to summarize some of the things that she said
Thank you.
because from my perspective,
Yeah.
yes,
because I feel like that was a long answer.
It was.
Um,
I was entranced.
it
by
was-
it was
it was
very
great.
good. Like I was sitting there going,
I was
I
trying to
love
think of some practical things though that we've noticed for her from her going to therapy.
That's
I think it was been like we went from her not knowing how to speak about her feelings and understand them
Mm.
to her being able to understand and speak them. So
Mm.
like she does it more so with Lauren than she does with me, but she's more open and feels safe to talk to us more openly about those things. So I think the biggest things has been her there was a mixture of puberty and grief at the beginning, and now it's like I think mostly puberty
Right.
related
Yeah.
and less grief related. So,
Mhm.
she's those hard feelings that she's had has been more easy to pinpoint for us. Like
Yeah.
this is because she's just a growing young
Girl.
woman
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
that's just a challenge in itself. But yeah, less of the grief because she's been able to have that outlet and understand
Yeah.
how to work through that
Mhm.
versus I can't control my hormones right now.
Right.
Yeah,
That's true.
Exactly.
The therapist has, as good as we were and are at talking to her and having, pretty serious conversations and being intentional about doing that, her therapist has given her, she always comes home with a fidget.
Mhm.
Something to just, and there's a whole bucket and she gets to pick out whatever she wants. Every week she'll come home with something new.
There's so many different
And
ones.
there are, but
Who knew?
there's so much science behind even just having, moving a ball back and forth, right?
Yes.
Like you guys look like you
We
know all
probably
about
need to
that.
get one, huh?
Okay, but just
I
like
have a punching bag.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
talking about tangible things, like anyone in therapy knows this, but like the butterfly hug and just like alternating like this, right? And taking some deep breaths and just doing very tangible things to like calm your nervous system. Like when you get so angry you can't think, stop and do this.
Are you taking notes?
I'm recording this whole thing as we speak.
Okay.
But yeah, there are things I've learned in therapy that I've taught her. And then there are different things that she's learned that she's taught me. And, maybe things that are more appropriate for kids that I wasn't taught because I'm not a kid.
Right.
And yeah, so there are very tangible things. And she's good about telling me about it. I'll be like, hey, how was therapy today? And, you don't have to tell me every detail, but how do you feel? And she'll always open up and share something she learned. And so when I hear something practical, I just keep that kind of in my back pocket, in my toolbox for when I see her get upset and be like, hey, remember, Miss Lori talked about this. Maybe go try that. Or
Mhm.
she
Mhm.
loves to draw. She loves to paint. If she gets really angry, I like to say, you know what? Why don't you go spend some alone time in your room and just draw it out? And one of her biggest outlets, and she paints a lot in therapy, and one of her biggest outlets is to draw how she's feeling, and just kind of getting out her emotion in that way makes her feel better. And
She drew us an angry picture just last night.
she did draw us an
Yeah.
angry picture last night. And, I opened the door and I just thought, okay, you're allowed to feel this way, but let me tell you why I made this decision. And she wasn't happy, but she got up and went to her room and left us alone.
That's a win.
That's a win. No, but just acknowledge it. Kids are just like adults. We're allowed to get upset and be irrational. That makes us human. But it's knowing, how to process through that emotion without overreacting and causing harm to yourself or
Right.
others.
Well, even
And-
Jesus said, "Be angry, but sin not."
right. And so I
You
think
know,
it's
so that's how you're harnessing that. Okay, yes, you can be angry, but don't go punch your brother in the back.
exactly.
Okay, so you know what I mean?
I mean, it's
or
true.
don't tell off your parent.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so the Lord, He even acknowledges anger.
Mhm.
He did it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm acknowledging this. Feel angry,
Yeah.
but sin not.
yeah.
And
So,
so,
you
it's
know-
okay to feel all those feelings.
Yeah, before and after therapy, before angry, could get really angry sometimes and just kind of explode. And I remember telling her therapist, I feel like her brother's kind of an emotional punching bag, and I need that to stop. I know siblings fight, and
Yeah.
that's very normal, and they've got to learn how to respect each other as they grow up. But I knew so much of that was coming from grief, and I needed her to have a different outlet. And so, I her therapist is just, wonderful. We communicate well and make sure that we're on the same page, so that we're both helping Emma, you know, in the same ways. And um,
It's team effort.
it's a team effort. And, now I think we've kind of, I feel comfortable saying that she does not use her brother as her emotional punching bag any longer. I feel like now
It's just normal sibling fights.
sibling
Yeah.
fights now. And I think because she has learned some very practical ways to deal with her anger.
That's growth.
That
That's
is
growth.
growth.